Welcome to Talking Hats.
I'm Monty Swirls.
And I'm Old Man Wolfie.
And with us today, we have...
Billy.
And Bunny.
And today we're going to talk about our favorite thing in the world, people of color and geekdom. And
yes. Not to be belittling the point, but these two are not here on February being black for no reason.
Yeah. Okay.
This was not an accident.
On the eve... on Black Panther Eve, because we are all going to be seeing that movie tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So we will honestly, we could have you back just to talk about the movie afterwards.
Can I wear my Black Panther outfit?
We could just do a showcase of the outfits, because I'm sure it'll be amazing.
Be like, yeah.
We've seen what you made. Oh, in case you guys are wondering, the waistcoat that we've pointed out before that Wolfie has, and if you've seen our Dragon Con video, you've seen him walking around. This is the one who made it.
She does good work.
Yes, she does.
And so we're here today to talk about the experience of being a person of color in geek spaces. And, you know, we wanted to bring on some friends, talk about some of the issues that they've gone through, things that you've dealt with, how it's changed, how the situation's changed, how the landscape is changing, and get your thoughts, get your input.
So, being black and a nerd, what was the moment or moments in your life that solidified that for you? Where you basically had faced both. I'm black, I'm a nerd, this is who I am, regardless of people's acceptance of either side of that.
The defining moment for me where I realized I was both black and a nerd was when I had no idea what cosplay was. I had no idea that it existed. I pretty much just thought, these companies like, say, Pioneer or Nintendo or all these other, manufacturers of anime would get these models. I had no idea these were people doing them on their own time. And I was like, I really want to do this. But then I had the realization of, as much as I know about the shows that I love, there's no character for me. Like, there was no character that I felt that I could pull off as well as non-people of color. And it sucked hard. Like, I was like, oh my goodness. And it really sucked because my parents are theater. I grew up in theater. You see people playing characters that other people say you can't do. Only to kind of have this wall here of, they look amazing. You can do the costume, but you can't do that character. And it's not because of something as silly as you can't physically do that character because you can't make anything, but because of the way you look. And there's nothing you can do to change it.
Right.
And
you can't go to the gym and get swole.
Yeah, like, oh my God.
If you can't change that part.
Yeah, if a scrawny guy wanted to play Arnold Schwarzenegger from, like, the Terminator movies, all he has to do is beef up. He's fine.
He could wear a fake muscle shirt. People would still congratulate him, probably. Unironically wear a fake muscle shirt.
Put the glasses on and say, I'll be back, and they get the point.
Yeah. And that would be accepted. People would snicker, but he would expect a certain amount of that because he's obviously not... He's taking it in a slightly less serious manner because, he doesn't want to go to the gym and get swole. Yeah. But it's still, they're snickering, but it's not there's nothing cruel behind it. There's nothing condescending behind it.
Yeah. It's,
we get the joke of what you're doing.
I think, same with Bunny. First time going to an anime convention and going to a masquerade where you have great cosplayers, some not so good ones.
It is a convention.
it's fun.
But there was like one time there was a Tifa cosplayer from Final Fantasy VII. She was black. She went up. No one applauded her. But then you have, I guess, the same girl that was in their group. She was Yuffie. People applauded her. She was white. And I think as soon as that clicked, it's like, okay, maybe that was like the first thing. Next thing, you have a girl cosplaying as Haruhi from the Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. No, man. no, everything's silence. And I think seeing
and that's not even cosplaying a white person.
Yeah.
That's a Japanese person.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. A white person cosplaying Haruhi.
Exactly,
would
but if
be
people
in
have this
yellow face.
Oh God.
Oh God, no.
I mean, but you don't think of it that way.
Right. It's just, yeah, you have to have the certain image. You have to look exactly like like this character, and I think that's it's like, oh crap, that's it. I'm gonna be different, and if I try to cosplay as somebody I want to, it has to be someone who's gonna look similar to me or is the same race as I am.
Now, knowing that you are a Tokusatsu fan,
Yes.
what did it mean to you when the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, even though it was the Black Ranger, he was actually black?
Yeah.
And he had hip-hop kung fu.
I think that was like the greatest thing.
But it was the 90s.
Yes.
Full of bad ideas, even if they're well-intentioned.
Well-intentioned, but wrong.
Yes.
Acid wash jeans.
Being black, having... in a superhero show that you liked, actually having a character who represented you.
Yeah.
Did that bring it more to the forefront for you than it may have otherwise? Like, if they had all been white, you probably still would have loved the idea of the show, the concept, probably still would have watched it. Do you think it mattered as much?
I think, yeah, I thought it was like the greatest thing to me. Seeing stuff that I usually see in my neighborhood, people that I know, people are, dancing hip-hop. Right. Doing all this stuff, playing the music. That's.
I mean, it's not that
character.
It's
stupid.
Like, I mean, there's a kung fu.
Really hard.
Well, there's a kung fu style. There's a fighting martial arts style that is very dance-like. It's supposed to be dance-like. I forget what it's called, but it's like this. Yeah, capoeira. This is an actual style. So it's like there's not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just exceedingly 90s in a lot of the wrong ways. But
it just needed extreme in front of it. Yeah, it was perfect. It's like.
Have a way to really try to connect with our black audiences. Bring in hip hop with a character can fight.
And I think in this case it was very much trying to check all their boxes.
I know, but it's like,
but they also, as much as Saban's an asshole, money grubbing asshole.
I am Saban.
He wanted, for whatever motivation, he wanted everyone to be grabbed.
Right.
And that meant black people. So he may have wanted to steal all your money from you, but as far as Saban was concerned, I suppose, your money was just as good as everybody else's, which is more than a lot of creators give you. Now, what do you think about them changing Billy, in case you guys were wondering why his name's Billy, to the Blue Ranger for the movie?
Yes. Wait. So, one, David Yost was my first crush, which meant that I was doomed to be in love with gay men for the rest of my life. But on the one hand, it's almost a confliction between traditional and changing the story for the reason of progress, because everyone assumes that the Black Ranger is always going to be black, just because Walter was the first Black Ranger. Like, literally the first Black Ranger. So everyone's going to automatically assume...
Black Ranger.
So everyone's going to automatically assume that if there's a Black Ranger, then they're automatically going to make him a black man. So I was like, oh, this is a nice little twist. I like this.
Well, so it was a subversion, and it could have been done just to do that. But on the other hand, him being black was incidental to the character.
Right.
Being black didn't form the emotional core of that character at all. Period. And he was still the same sciencey, intelligent, invents things character that Billy was in the original show. So
they literally just re-swapped the
exactly.
It doesn't make a difference. Exactly. It doesn't make a difference to the core part of the character.
The fact that it makes no difference to the character makes all the difference in the media for you. Because it's representation without it being about representation. Or at least being able to appear as not being about representation. Even, motives being motives, the end result in this case was a good thing.
Yeah. Unlike when they... What was it? I don't like when they feel they need to race swap a character just so they can tap into that market. Like, there was a lot of flack for Ghost in the Shell because... was it Morimoto?
Was it Morimoto?
Scarlett Johansson's character.
Yeah. Thingy Kusanagi.
Thank you.
Yeah, Major Kusanagi.
Makoto Kusanagi.
Yeah.
Thank you. I should know this name because I own the goddamn manga and I love Ghost in the Shell.
But like, there's a whole lot of like, she's not Asian. There are so many Asian characters because it's set in Japan.
Well, yes, but the Major is a brain in a case. She's not. We don't even know if she. For all we know, because it's never explained. It's never told. They're because they live in even though they still have countries, they live in an extremely global culture. She is literally just a brain.
Yeah,
She
I mean
could
they
be
explained it in the
German.
movie.
No, I'm just for both the manga, TV show, movie, regardless. Like the character in general, it's never established that she is specifically Japanese.
And the weirdest
She
thing
never,
was that,
like in some instances, like in Arise, she never even grows a normal body. She is turned into a cyborg when she was born because she's dying. It's to save her life. So she's
they just
never
drop
been
her,
anything
you know,
but synthetic. She's only ever been a brain in a case. So
That's the name Ghost
it's
in the
like
Shell.
there are definitely characters where changing that would be bad. I wouldn't say them. While I say, would it be better if she was Japanese? Maybe. I don't know. There are probably other actors that could have been better or worse or what have you. But as far as the character is concerned, it doesn't undermine it. I understand the argument for it, though. But it's not the same thing as making Akira white people.
please, Jordan Peele, don't make the Akira movie. I love you. I think you're a great director. Please don't do the Akira movie. Please.
Well, it's like even having a star power attached to the movie didn't help it, and that was that. People complain whitewashing this, that, other thing. It's like it wasn't about whitewashing. It was about trying to sell this movie to the masses by putting a famous name and face in there.
Right. There's a downside to that too.
There absolutely is. It doesn't always work, which is obvious right here.
See, it's weird. It's weird when like there are some times where yes, there are absolutely aspects of like the Dragon Ball Evolution movie where it's this whitewash that you could fucking get.
See that is just like
That was just.
That
It was a
garbage.
badly done movie.
It was garbage.
Like race,
okay.
no race.
even if it was
everything
cast
aside, it's just a
even if they
movie.
didn't whitewash the movie, it would still be absolute trash.
Oh god.
If they had just
But at least it wouldn't be whitewashed and
Like,
even
I
more
have
trash.
never been so disappointed in childhood fat in my life.
Disappointment
wait.
does not even begin to describe.
no.
Not even Last Airbender? That did disappoint you?
That did not.
See,
Not
there's
as
at
bad
least
as
a
this.
fan theory for the live-action Airbender movie
Uh-huh.
that gives it a small bit of legitimacy.
It was
It's
still
an
bad,
adaptation of the stage play that they found that was about them in the show.
Oh jeez.
That
doesn't work.
That makes
that doesn't work. I'm
makes
sorry,
it
no,
feel
that
better about
isn't-
it existing. I mean,
that's-
that's like okay. I'll just pretend that was the explanation as to why it exists, and we'll
Yes,
just continue on from there.
It was a terrible play adaptation done by people who didn't know the actual people,
I'm just gonna
which
say.
is why everything was wrong.
I'm just
Oh,
gonna say,
God.
don't save M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah.
Just don't save him.
Yeah,
He's okay. He's a big boy. He can handle himself. Don't save him.
Yeah.
It was a bad movie.
But yeah, so
He's really trying to come back.
even though she kind of stole the freaking answer,
Oops,
but
sorry.
still it was good. But when Billy was made, when Billy was turned into the black,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to being the Black Ranger and being that character, what did you think about that? Because honestly,
First
you
going
have a
into
Blue
it.
Ranger suit, so
Yeah.
obviously you don't hate it.
Gianna's first seeing about it, first going in, I actually thought that they were just doing like the second season cast, and I thought they were going to cast like the Yellow Ranger as a black person. Like they were going to try to be as politically correct as possible, and just skip over the fact that the Yellow Ranger was Asian and the Black Ranger was black.
Oh my god, I never caught that.
Dude,
Oh
the thing
yeah.
is,
It's like,
while that is a horrible thing to think about, you have to understand the Yellow Ranger isn't
She wasn't.
Asian.
She wasn't the
because
original one.
Yellow is Asian.
Yeah.
although that helps.
She also wasn't.
She is yellow because Asians are most often flat-chested, and the original footage, Yellow Ranger is a boy.
It's a boy.
Yeah.
The only female ranger in the original Zur Rangers
It's the
is pink,
Ranger.
which is why Yellow didn't have a skirt. Which means they couldn't cast a buxom Yellow Ranger in civilian clothes.
Suddenly
She
get
had to
her
be an A cup.
breast fat.
I could totally play her.
So it's not kind of a bad reason, but it's not. It's kind of
quite as-
sort of It's
still
a different
racist.
kind of
Trust me,
racist.
It's a different kind of racist. It's a
Yeah.
It was unintentionally racist.
I mean, I'm sure both cases were unintentional, or at very least not thought through,
Mm-hmm.
and it's probably a miracle it didn't work against them, despite everyone looking at it and going like, and they probably realized it themselves too, because they jumbled the colors up a bit more
25
in
years
following
later.
seasons. As soon as they started rotating the cast, in fact.
Well, if
So-
it makes you feel any better, the so-called Gold Ranger was a white guy in a white suit.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Just saying, throwing that out there.
But yeah, so it's like, did you like the change for the character?
Yeah, and I like really connected with it. Seeing like this really smart. Oh well, he had.
He's on the spectrum, but on
spectrum.
the other time, it's like
I'm
he's
Billy.
not yeah, he's not. And yes, it's my fault. That's his nickname.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not just like him being black. The autism isn't. It's not core to who he is.
Right.
It's part of who he is, but it's incidental.
Exactly.
It's not. Oh, look, here's the black person, or here's the autistic person. It's just a part of the way he deals with the world. It's done. Honestly, it's like, as people will come down on the Power Rangers movie, it was better than it had any right to be, and I'm glad it was. But these are, like, even with all the movie's flaws, and it has them, like, these characters were so well done. It's like, I want to see more. They
Oh no, there's
definitely-
more character development in the first half hour of that movie than there was in the first season.
episode?
First
And it's
season.
not- we're not calling you autistic.
No.
Don't get
Much.
us wrong.
Much.
But,
Focus on it though.
You do. A lot of the mannerisms he had that aren't necessarily specifically tied to his autism. It's like you.
Right.
You are
It's
Billy. That's
every quirk in the character. Hey, that's me. I think watching it with you guys, just rejecting it over and over again. But there was like one scene where he was like, I guess, pinpointing everything from find the Krispy Kreme.
Right.
Sorry if you didn't see
Spoilers.
that. Spoilers.
Yes.
And there was like one joke, and then it's like, oh crap,
That's me.
that's me.
Oh, crap, that's me.
And of course, it was I think we introduced you to the nickname the first time, so he walked in and go, "Hey, Billy." Just about near broke him.
And it stuck.
Yes.
We love him so. The
My friends have learned to understand that you don't necessarily want to fight the nicknames I give you, because you can get me to stop.
Wait,
And
do I
it-
have a nickname?
No, you don't. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But like, Sapphire Scales, our other host. Jokingly, I started calling her Sappy-chan. She hated it. She's accepted it now. But her boyfriend was like, still kind of hurting, like, really like that he's doing that. And I'm like, no, it's like, we need to tell him. It's like, no, it's like, just let him keep this. Because if we get him to stop, something worse will pop into his head.
Oh my god.
And that will become the nickname. And it's not intentional, I swear. It's not. But if he had denied Billy, there's a very good chance something worse would have come. And that would have been the one that stopped.
Oh,
So, there is a legitimate danger that I do not do on purpose. I'm
Billy is
aware of it.
Billy is fine. Oh my god.
Billy is okay.
He'll take Billy.
I don't know what it would be, and if you never give my brain excuse to think it up, it will never happen.
No.
But I know my brain. I do not have control over my brain.
Talking hats, where we're intimidating our guests.
Oh
But-
goodness. Now I'm
So
worried.
it's probably
Now I'm worried.
no. You're probably good because now we have Bunny.
Okay.
You have Bunny. Like,
Yay.
the
I don't do it to everybody. I don't plan these things out. They just happen. It's chaos.
I'm more so like, oh god, he hasn't thought of anything for me yet. There's something monstrous. For
There
me.
could be, or it could not be.
It's
I mean,
sinister.
for all you know, you'd like it. I don't know. But anyway, we digress. We digress. Quite a lot.
Yeah.
We did. Okay.
Okay.
I was going to do a minor segue. Okay. True or false? Punk Rogue is Punk Storm is best Storm.
True.
Yeah.
True. Oh my god. So much truth. So much truth.
Because I love Storm when she went through her 80s punk phase was so with the shade the mohawk
Nice
and she
mohawk
lost her
Storm.
powers and she still managed to kick Cyclops' ass because
That part,
well
yes.
that was
Well,
Cyclops. man.
Cyclops is a white little bitch, so of course.
Cyclops.
Kitty Pryde.
That's right.
Well, no, that's unfair because Kitty Pryde's actually really, really good.
And she's actually powerful, unlike Scott.
Yeah.
Kitty Pryde became a professor.
It's like, but
No, Kitty Pryde's dragon can kick Scott's butt.
yeah, I
we
won't
go.
deny that one.
Oof.
There we go.
I'd love to see Lockheed kick Cope's ass.
And now it will happen. Internet, make it happen.
Yeah. we charge this.
This is the internet. You fool! It already happened before you said it.
Oh my god.
No, because the thing is that was like one of the first like characters that I remember just being so. There were very, very few things ever wrong. I think that's how they took away her powers, because really they always wrote Storm to be pretty much. You know, she was the only. She wasn't exactly what I would call pure per se, but she was written without any. Like her biggest flaw at the time was she cared too much. You know, she was
Right.
She was one of those.
She was not written with any crippling psychological issues.
Yeah, which is like the rest of the friggin'
Pretty much
especially
everybody
X-Men.
else was.
My God,
gosh.
the rest of the X-Men, she was the most well balanced X-Men, and that was.
Freud would have a field day.
Yes. But she was, you know, she was worshipped as a god, and she was, you know, she had a nobility about her. And she was just, I think that's why they had to take away her powers. They had to do something to keep her from being so good that she'd be Mary Sue territory, you know? And that's, it's fair because...
Like, she could do everything Magneto wanted to do without being evil about it. And
Yeah.
the mutants would follow her, and it would work.
Usually, every time she did. But she was, you know, people talk about Professor X, but Storm was the only real person who had any sanity throughout, you know, except for the times where she actually did lose her mind, because, you know, shit would happen. But...
It is the X-Men.
And now that Fox is will eventually be part of the Disney Empire, or those characters will be part of the Disney Empire.
Yes,
we
the
can
carnivorous Disney
Can we
family domain.
please get rid of that terrible
And
Storm
Four Stick?
Oh my
from
god!
First Class?
Yeah,
I have not seen First Class Storm. The last Storm I really saw was Halle Berry, which I did not
And-
hate.
No.
I did
I
not.
hated her. I hated her.
No.
No, I did
I
not
straight up
hate
her.
it, but it's not a good Storm.
Yeah.
Like I said, I didn't hate it.
Again, my topic for Storm will always be Angela Bassett.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Trust
queen.
me, she,
Everything.
Halle Berry's Storm's not even in the running
I always wanted
at
to
all,
mod,
but I don't hate it.
I can see that.
especially since she has the accent.
Yeah.
Especially since it comes to the accent. Everyone kept saying Grace Jones. I'm like, for Punk Storm, absolutely.
For,
That was-
yes,
she
Grace
was
Jones
awesome.
for Punk Storm would have kicked it out the park.
Yeah.
It's like, it's
I mean, she
like
basically looks like Punk Storm already. That
Already.
you're just
then-
just
but
say these
unfortunately, there's
lines,
the
you're
problem
already
of
the
her being
character.
deceased.
yeah. Well, who? Yeah, well.
There's the problem of her being deceased, so we will never see such a thing.
Well, we just have to raid Disney and find the necromancers they have on payroll.
But the,
There is one. There is one.
there are some, because then we can have Storm married to T'Challa.
Yes.
Oh wait, no.
Well, didn't they get
they did get divorced, but their union kind of. There was a whole thing about him being.
Isn't that
Avengers and
kind
her
of the
being
power
X-Men in
couple
this,
that
like,
would probably destroy themselves?
They destroyed Wakanda.
They did.
Like, just their power struggle, even unintentionally, they just end up destroying each other.
or everything around them.
And everything around them.
See, but that's good drama.
Yes.
But here's the thing, like,
Yeah, I mean, the fight between the two of them in Avengers vs. X-Men, they just kept coming for each other. Made each other in the filth. That was fun. I want to see more of that. Let that be in whatever, you know.
Whatever
I mean,
crossover
now
universe-
it's a
crossover
part.
we get.
Now it's a part
Right.
of the same, you know.
university
No,
thing.
but they're
I mean,
gonna
but
have
that's the
to
good thing
It can
about,
happen.
you know, the DCU is like, fuck the DCU. No.
Thank you.
The MCU. Wrong letter. Brain was in the right spot. Alphabet was wrong. The MCU, yeah, it's based heavily off the Ultimate Universe,
Right.
but not exclusively. They can literally cherry pick whatever they want. And they do not need to be held to just about anything at all. They can go wherever. So there's no reason they can't bring more diversity, bring these other characters in, bring it all together, and it can be great. But it's daunting it would be daunting for anybody to plan out and do right.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of waiting for the time that the MCU caves in on itself and praying it takes forever to happen, because I'm really liking the movies. Even the bad ones are good.
Oh, jeez.
So far, their only unmitigated flop has been the Inhumans, and
I still haven't seen it.
nobody, and it has not had any effect on anything else. It was its own little cautionary tale of like.
Well,
what not to
I think
do
they
it.
managed to see the writing on the wall soon enough to cauterize it away, so it didn't affect anything, which I suppose is good. Although the TV shows are probably going to suffer because of it, because they're a little more tied to Inhumans than everything else was. But there was already this kind of
forget about
love-hate
But then
relationship between
MCU, when it comes to
TV
television shows, I hate to say it, but DC is kicking ass in television.
Oh, absolutely.
But-
Absolutely. That's the only place that any ass gets kicked by DC is television.
My boyfriend would not like you. He's like Batman all day.
Oh,
Everything.
there are good Batman comics. There are some good DC comics. There are even a couple good Batman movies. But the majority of DC movie stuff is absolute trash. If you want good DC stuff, the animated TV shows, the animated movies, those are what the DCU could be and is not.
Okay,
Flashpoint.
the worst animated film is better than most of the good, good movies.
Yeah, even the popcorn's cheesiest Marvel, or not Marvel, DC animated film is miles better than most DC stuff on the movies. It just
honestly, the only good
that 30 movie collection
DC thing
that DC has that's like $200. You have no idea how much I want that.
Because that actually has all the good stuff in it.
Yeah.
The thing is that the DC, like they're flailing about, and their one character of color is currently, I don't know what the fuck they were thinking about Cyborg. It's just a mess, an unmitigated mess. And it's like I want so badly for this not to be awful because I like these characters.
But see, they already screwed the pooch with the Green Lantern movies, so they couldn't bring in the best Green Lantern ever because now they're going to be too afraid to touch that franchise for a while. So it doesn't matter that it's not Hal Jordan. They still probably won't do it because it's Green Lantern.
Which sucks because Green Lantern is literally my favorite DC character.
No, Jon Stewart, Green Lantern, he's amazing. That's best character ever almost in DC.
Idris Elba.
Yeah. Sadly, he's tied to the MCU at the moment, so we can't.
Maybe when he was younger, but that's still a really good pick. I definitely can agree with you there.
It's like, oh no.
We may have missed the ideal window for his age to be a good Jon Stewart because he's getting there in age.
He is getting up a little bit in years,
but no, I do not disagree with you on principle at all. Idris Elba, yeah, definitely.
But that was the thing about.
But then again, I could listen to Idris Elba reading the phone book and be entranced. So.
But honestly, that was one of the main reasons why Green Lantern was my favorite. Wasn't necessarily because you can create whatever you want based on your imagination. You can literally make, I don't know, a freaking Gundam if you wanted to, and it's functional and you can use it. But I like the Green Lantern because he didn't have to be a certain color. He didn't have to be a certain nationality. Right. The Green Lantern was whoever the power went to.
The color comes from his power, not from his skin.
Yes. And that
was as awesome as the Black Lightning. That is the right name of the character, right? For the TV show?
Yeah.
Black Lightning.
Yeah. As awesome, and I've only seen the first episode so far, and you've seen it. It's like, as awesome as this is, and like, I absolutely love it. Like, it's amazing. He's Black Lightning because he's black.
Yeah. And I hate to say,
70s.
it's good to be represented, but at the same time, you don't want to be represented just because you're black.
Right. And I would say, change his name. But to do that for a character of this age, that's been around for as long as it's been, it's not really a feasible idea. At that point, you need to just accept it and
move on,
and treat it as like it because the show is awesome. The character's awesome because of the portrayal. It has nothing to do with him being black, although the show is very black, and I love it. Sorry, just love
it's
it.
It's a realism.
Yeah, the real like the Luke Cage animated series. You know, it's like everything making me look forward to Black Panther because all these people are complaining that it's too black, and I'm like,
I don't care.
It's like okay, my desire to every time a white person complains that Black Panther is too black, my desire to see the movie goes up.
Oh no, there was actually one of the things that I thought was weird was the fact that there's so much backlash from this movie just because it's black. And I'm like, there are people like, oh, they're making a movie about, the Black Panther Party. It's not about the Black Panther Party. And this one guy, whatever his name is, I don't even care, and I'm not going to give him the satisfaction of even mentioning his name.
You're not even giving him the energy to remember his name. So.
Yeah. Was like, well, what if there's a KKK movie? I'm like, there is.
Yeah.
It's called The Birth of a Nation. It was terrible.
I'm pretty sure there's more than one, actually.
No,
they
remake it.
But,
remake it?
No. That Birth of a Nation was about Nat Turner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Different Birth of a Nation.
Okay.
But yeah,
Same title, different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, there is one, and we already agree that it's terrible.
Yeah.
This is about the KKK.
Yeah.
This is not about a racist movement. But at least if this was a movie about the Black Panthers, there'd still be merit in it, because the reason the Black Panthers are around has a much better reason for it. Even if you can, even if you can objectively say their actions were wrong, their reason for existing was not.
Nope. Absolutely not.
And that just turns it from, celebration to a tragedy, which is still going to have the same kind of, should have the same kind of emotional effect on people. It's like, yes, these were people doing horrible things, but this is why it was happening. This is why it's a tragedy. I am speaking out of my ass right now because I don't know their history, so I'm not saying they are this way.
No, it was mostly, it was mostly, and again, this comes from, like, my parents and my family constantly, like, history.
Right.
This is your history, learn it. It was more so their way of coping with the systematic oppression of African Americans.
Right.
They were like, look, basically the way they were thinking was, hey, black people, you can't, like, do all of these things, but you're gonna have to fix it yourself. And they were like, okay, we're gonna fix it ourselves. And they did. Now, their methods were questionable at times, but then there's no right or wrong way.
Right. When it comes to revolution, it's very easy to sit back when you're going through your butt vision and say who was right and who was wrong.
Yeah.
And that they shouldn't have done this.
And the thing is, you're also
as opposed to being in that situation.
When you are there,
it's a completely different
Not to mention disinformation campaigns from
history,
the government at the time.
history is ultimately told by the winners. So,
or by whoever has the loudest voice.
Right.
So since the government had the loudest voice,
I mean, even Eartha Kitt had a dossier on her.
Oh yeah.
I was like, yeah. As if I couldn't love the woman
blacklisted.
more.
She was blacklisted. She had to leave the country for several years because there was, between the communism and then the Black Panther, the black activist thing. She was persona non grata in the Americas, and she still came back and kicked ass. Yep. So it's like, gotta give her credit. You give this one mad props.
Yep.
Pro gay rights. She was. Yeah, that was another one of her sticking points, was the fact that, she was everything wrong with everything against the status quo of the 60s.
She was a manifestation of contrary.
She was very vocal.
She was vocal.
Like, oh my God. And honestly, I idolize this woman.
Yeah. And honestly,
I was like, yes.
She's not a woman you could ignore.
Nope. You can't.
At all.
There is no way you
There's
can.
just everything when I've seen, like, interviews with her or pictures, like, there's just something about her that's like, no matter how much you may want to, no matter how much you may hate her and want to shut down her voice,
you can't ignore her.
You can't even tune it out of your own head. There's just something, just amazing woman, just something about it. It's like even when someone was trying, they couldn't, just for themselves, it'd be impossible to ignore her.
Mm-hmm. But
we get off track a lot.
Well, the thing is,
we're off track, but we're still on track. So
we're off the visual.
I loved her. The first time I even saw her was the old Batman shows, because you see like Julie Newmar and you see like all of these characters, even the Joker. Even the Joker, I had no idea he was Hispanic. I had no clue.
I wouldn't know.
I did not know that.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I had no clue whatsoever.
Not only that, but he also, the thing was that you never noticed that he actually would whiteface over his mustache.
Yeah, he never shaved his mustache.
Well, he refused to shave his mustache.
Because that was, and clown makeup is thick enough to do that. They slather that shit on.
In the restored Blu-rays, you could really tell though. But the thing is that he was Cesar Romero was very popular in his home country. This was what he was known for, was the gigantic mustache, and he wasn't going to shave that. He was like, nope, I'll do the show, but I won't shave the mustache. So that's what they compromised, was that they got to cover over it. But yeah, it was surprising. It was a weirdly diverse cast that they have people that they had between a lot of people who were.
What's funny, that's where nerdery and comic books being kind of a fringe media at the time, people didn't really take seriously or bring to the same level of care as they do other things, allowed it to get away with that.
Yeah.
Because people didn't care.
Yeah, because the things that was what allowed them to hire someone who had been persona non grata / blacklisted.
Right.
And they also had like theater people who were on TV, which was considered kind of borderline communist at the time.
Hot, mighty people who would have had issue with casting you can't cast a black woman, especially Eartha Kitt, in a major role on TV, flew right past them because this show was so beneath them that they didn't even notice it in the first place.
And she was no, let's be honest, she was the sexiest Catwoman of all of them.
Look, She was the first time I ever saw a character that I know as a white character, as a black character, and I was like,
officially,
I can do that
on a TV show.
Yes.
Right.
And it goes back to the whole cosplay thing of looking for a character that I could cosplay, somebody that I felt that I could do. And I look at her and I'm like, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
I can do that. I can be Catwoman, and it's okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Of course, if you're Catwoman, you know the name they'll probably say before they say Eartha Kitt, right?
Halle Berry.
Even if you're not wearing that costume, which I think you won't be.
Yeah, which is such a shame.
Can we talk about Miss Berry, please?
Oh, just the
honestly,
actress or the movie she's in? Because the villain was an evil white woman who
dressed in white
and had evil makeup that made her super powered.
Evil white person makeup.
Can we just like bring up the fact that it was kind of like a quasi spin-off of Batman? Like,
no, it was
doing something else.
It was a spin-off that not only spun off but flew off the tracks.
Rainbow right off the
I don't know what they hit, but it sent them flying.
Oh my god.
Having it only be associated by name alone to the
objectively-
character is not
okay.
a problem. That's not why the movie was bad.
I was like, and I was so sad because I was like, yay, another black Catwoman. Awesome. Oh.
That.
Wow.
This is somehow both horrible and sexist at the same time. What the hell?
I actually thought it was like giving Eartha Kitt's Catwoman like her
A run
own
for
origin like story or something.
No.
Like this is something different.
Well, if
But
it was
no.
good, maybe.
Probably, but no.
But no, we got Halle Berry in a stripper outfit with claws and
And for
and bad CG.
for certain audiences, that's enough.
Yeah, well,
I mean, well, shoot, Halle Berry even made me question myself for a minute, but
Yeah.
still.
It's not that she's a
I
bad
digress.
actress or she's
She's so-
unattractive.
No, you know what's
it's
really-
just she's been cast horribly
it's really
sometimes.
funny
Yeah.
that movie. That everything about that movie was just so weirdly, like tonally all over the place.
I mean,
It was
it's
the border between
It'd be
campy
an
and
excellent bad movie, and not even
It's
like
a guilty pleasure.
not even
It's a
I
guilty
have to
pleasure
drink
movie.
myself to stand this movie. No, not even like that. It's just so wrong, so bad, in the most fascinating ways
Oh my god.
that you will enjoy this movie for reasons completely against what they intended.
yeah. But the thing is that's it's still better than her in that storm wig, that Party City wig that they stuffed her in.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Although, okay,
I'm like,
Cut it.
could they have gone somewhere other than Party City? I mean, like it looked like they'd run down to the local
with the
Party City,
budget-
slap the wall, and slap.
Honestly,
you
with
know.
the budget that movie had, they could have done so much better. But I think most of
like
the
hire better
costuming,
3D artists,
Oh god.
or at least
I
better
think most
compositors.
of their budget went to
That too.
Rebecca Romijn.
That happens. That happens a lot. When
That
you
does
try and
happen.
get a big star name in something. That
And her,
that is-
her, you know, these
Her
are have
cos-
to like put scales on her like manually.
It's
And I'm sure that they were.
a
I'm sure they
long
could have done it a
process.
little bit differently, but I'm sure that it was Rebecca Romijn, so they were like putting the scales on her hand manually, extra manually.
No, they're just brushing off the cover that's already there.
Yeah, exactly.
But okay, I showed you last time you were here. Are you familiar with the '90s TV show Mantis?
Like, wait a minute. Black
Superhero.
superhero.
Black
Yeah, black
superhero.
superhero. He had like the silver.
Paraplegic,
I
and he has suit.
know of it. I never actually watched it.
Okay. Unfortunately, it does suffer from being severely toned down. Like the pilot is amazing.
Yes.
She can attest to. I made him watch it.
It's really good.
The premise is essentially it's Bay City or something, but it's essentially L.A. Around the time of the gang riots. That type of setting.
Okay.
So it's like it's after the major riots have happened. The gangs are sort of coming to a peace. They're in a truce, and they have political machinations, all that stuff. And you have the the white people, the black people, and the inner city dynamics, all that kind of stuff. And the pilot is really about this politician who was basically trying to make him to the gangs and to start a gang war so he can get reelected and get his basically SS task force on the streets to suppress everything. And Mantis is, it's very hot button topic, very race focused. All of the major characters, for the most part, are black, unless there's a reason for them to be white. It's from the black people's perspective more than anything at all, and it's amazing. I loved it. The show did not follow the pilot. His his two Kenyan assistants who were his interns and helped him manage the thing, who were awesome and amazing, and I loved their characters. They were seriously one of the best parts of the pilot. Were replaced by an old white dude.
White Alfred.
It's the Alfred.
Yes, they were replaced. Like, they were the Alfred, but they were awesome.
Mm.
But unfortunately, they were not Alfred enough. So a lot of the race undertones and that kind of stuff was very much focused down. You know, he now has his assistant is now an old white guy, and nothing wrong with the character in this thing, but it's like, so yeah, unfortunately, while the show itself is still good, does not live up to the pilot.
Whatever it sells.
But
I'm gonna have to watch this now.
I own it.
Okay.
So, if you want to stay here late, if you can stay here late, we can watch the pilot. It depends what time it is when we're done. How you're feeling, I won't force you, but it's like probably an hour and a half.
Okay.
But so yes, like I'd love to know your thoughts on the Mantis movie. It's just I love when I never got to see the show all the way through. I still haven't watched all the way through, and I have the DVDs. I've actually said I watched the pilot, and like, yes, this is everything I remember, and unfortunately some of the small bits I remember from the show are disconnected enough from the actual plot and setup that I did not realize how far from the pilot it had come when it became syndicated. So after I watched the first couple episodes, I kind of like, oh. Like, this, seriously, like, this is, it would have been, it's like almost what they're doing with Luke Cage.
Or Black Lightning.
But in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even see.
And not that far away time wise from the actual LA riots. Like this would have been if it stayed true to what the pilot started, it would have probably been on like the top list of every TV show thingy we have these days. Like it wouldn't have been you wouldn't have been an amazing black hero that you've had since the 90s. Before we got Black Panther.
Yep. Well, now.
We've always had Black Panther, but he's exploding now as he should have years ago. But it's like, and it just disappoints because the show just narratively, like, this is me geeking out from writing stuff. Narratively, like, this is everything. Like, when you have media, you want it to, entertain is good, digestible is good, but sometimes, especially when you get subject matter like this and it's so close to reality and there's so much you can do with it, you need to go into it and just, I almost never do. And it's so frustrating.
Yes. Deep breath.
Yes.
Deep breaths.
It's not about me. It's about you guys.
I don't know. I feel like there are... It's not just, like, majority black shows, but it's, like, also shows that are majority women. For instance, I feel like... You remember Birds of Prey?
Yep. I never actually saw it, but I do know of it.
Okay, Birds of Prey was actually one of my favorites because it was a majority. It was about female superheroes,
mm-hmm.
and they were kicking ass every day.
Yeah, it was basically, for those that don't know, the Birds of Prey were essentially the
every night.
Yeah, every night.
They were kind of like the superheroes' daughters.
Yeah, there was
so like I think Huntress was like
Catwoman and Batman's daughter, and then you had Black Canary's daughter and. It was. I love the show.
And Barbara Gordon was in there as Oracle. Mm-hmm. So it was.
You also had a disabled person.
Right. Yeah. Because Oracle is.
That's Oracle.
That is Oracle.
And then, of course, you have Harley Quinn no longer under the influence and thumb of the Joker becoming this huge crime boss. Like, it was so empowering as a girl, a little girl to see this. And then nothing.
And that just died.
It just died.
Pooted out. Like, so many... I mean, part of it was probably because I think they were probably not getting the budget they needed, and they weren't getting the ratings to get the budget they needed for a lot of... Because we had a lot of turnaround in the 90s of these types of shows. Mm-hmm. And very few of them...
The hell,
Cleopatra 2524.
Cleopatra.
Oh my gosh, Gina Torres.
Jack of all trades.
Sorry.
Okay, let's see. Do you guys remember Nightman?
Nightman? Oh my god.
I don't know what that is.
I remember Nightman.
Wait, is he the fighter of the...
I forget. He's
basically Batman, but yes.
Oh my god. Wasn't Bible Man's costume basically a cheap
very,
knockoff?
Very similar
was it knockoff?
Batman, yeah.
It's like
oh my god.
daytime Batman.
Yeah, it's like Hercules and Xena hit the zeitgeist, but very few of the other ones did. So that's probably more of the reason why Birds of Prey didn't take off. But it probably, if we looked at numbers, it probably said something to do with being an all-female cast, and they just didn't know how to get that.
Well, no, Cleopatra 25 was
all-female cast, and it didn't really get that far either.
Yeah, but
it started as a kind of sort of crossover or spin-off from Jack of All Trades. I don't know which one started. Yeah, with Bruce Campbell. But even that one didn't last very long, and Cleopatra lasted.
Well, Sam Raimi for that period was throwing everything at the kitchen sink at the wall to see what.
Everyone was doing that in the 90s.
Because it's like if you figure that he was responsible for Hercules, Xena, he was also responsible for.
Beastmaster.
He was also responsible for Mantis, and it's like this whole string of shows, like Renaissance Pictures was like. Yeah, it was just funny how much, literally, he was throwing everything at the kitchen sink, everything plus the kitchen sink, at the wall to see what would stick. And some stuff did, some stuff didn't, some stuff was pretty awful.
Well, yeah, I mean, he was able to do that. Right. But it's saddening how many things didn't stick that really feel like they should have.
The 90s were good for experimentation when it came to television. It was basically like
Very
the
much.
60s of television.
Yeah.
Where they were like, look, we need something new. We're not entirely sure whether or not this will work, but we're willing to give it a try, as opposed to now where everything needs to have a name attached
and
to
I think Power Rangers had something to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think Power Rangers really kicked off the let's make a superhero show, live action.
Yes.
But I would say Power Rangers survived based on the fact that they were repurposing lots of old footage. So all of the really expensive to make special effects shots were created in the editing room, and all they had to do was piece it together however they wanted.
We're only going to film 5 minutes of video.
Yeah,
then
so it's like that. And
Isn't that how everything is
and
done?
they even had.
Yes.
I don't know how much Power Rangers you've watched, Bunny, but they actually had. There are times when they had a fight scene comprised of clips from one season of Sentai against enemies from a different season of Sentai.
I have not seen this.
And the way they did that was basically swing, cut, react. Swing, cut, react. You never see them actually make contact.
No.
You just see their attack, and you see the other one reeling from an attack. That just, the way it's cut and edited makes it look like it was that attack. It's ingenious how stupid and simple it is, but yes, that's how you got to have, the Power Rangers and Megazord fighting a monster that didn't exist for like 3 years after this one stopped existing in Japan.
That's awesome.
But when you can build 90% of your show that way, with all the special effects already made, even though they did eventually start shooting their own, even as they did more of that, it's still much smaller budget needed than if you were actually doing it all yourself. Which is what every other 90s action show had to do. Which is why Power Rangers is still moving and is a force.
It's trying.
Now, let me ask something I want to ask something of Bunny for a second. How long have you been, because there's something I don't actually know. How long have you been doing conventions?
Ooh.
This is like one of those little questions.
The first time, oh goodness, it's been 4 or 5 years?
Okay.
The first time I've ever worked a convention was in 2013, and that was because my friend Jackie, sorry, they call him Blackie Chan, but his name is...
Yeah.
You know Blackie Chan.
Now, he doesn't hate the name or anything, but no, imagine Jackie Chan as a black man. This is what he looks like. He's that tall, lengthy, guy. Looks like even though he's not a martial arts by any sense at all. It's all illusion as far as that's concerned. But he looks like Jackie Chan.
But anywho, I was feeling down on myself. I was terrible. I got through this horrible breakup. It was just the worst. And he was like, "You need to do this convention." And I was like, because I've attended conventions and I've been like, okay, there's maybe a couple of things that I want to see, but ultimately I just want to go to the masquerade and the costume contest and maybe a panel here and there and be done with it. And I was like, especially now because everything goes on YouTube.
Yeah.
But he was like, I don't want you to attend the convention. I want you to work it. And that opened up a whole other door.
And you're like, say what now, sir?
Oh my goodness, no. There were, the first convention that I ever worked, I was stuck with Norman Reedus for the entire weekend. And I had so much more fun hanging out with the fans and the people working the convention than I ever did just attending. The only time that I can actually recall having fun going to a convention was when I went to Dragon Con with you guys. That was a whole smorgasbord. I was like...
And she was going in all confident. We warned her that it was going to break her. She didn't believe me. And then the first day of the con's like maybe half over, and she's already starting to crack at the edges.
In my defense, I was also going through finals.
Yeah.
Now she did pull herself back together, but she went in with so much confidence. But we were right, and we weren't right because we weren't right because we were right. We're right because we broke. Well, no.
No, it was actually.
I'm not
funny.
telling you this because I underestimate you. I'm telling you this from experience.
We went. I had never seen Bunny's head snap around in so many different.
Oh my god! No, okay, so
we were driving up to the hotel, and she's already like, "Oh my god! Oh 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 my god!"
So I had no clue. I had no idea what I was getting into because all they told me
You thought
was,
you did, though.
No,
you thought you did.
Because all they told me was, look, as a costumer, you need to go to Dragon Con because, oh my god, the cosplays. So I'm like, okay, I can do this. I was not.
You are not.
Mind you,
Not.
that was one of the years we arrived on Thursday, so the con hadn't even started.
Yeah, what was that? It's like halfway into Friday. The con's not even officially started quite yet. She's already breaking.
Shameless plug, go to Dragon Con.
Yeah. Oh, shameless plug nothing. We joke. This is the Blizzard and Dragon Con show.
Yeah, a lot of that. But the reason why I ask is because, like, from my experience, because I mean, I've been doing conventions since, the late 80s.
Mm-hmm.
What I find interesting about fandom is that the fandom is changing. Like, the fandom is becoming more multicultural.
And
there was a period, I started going to Dragon Con in 2004. 2004 was my first.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one year, it was like probably like 2012 or 13 or maybe even a little later, where I just, like, one day I looked up and I'm like, this crowd isn't as isn't as monochromatic as I remembered it being. Look, oh my goodness! Because there was one year where we were literally playing spot the black person in the crowd because it was easy. It was like where's Waldo? Except like it's like
Waldo circled everywhere.
But it's like we've gotten to the point where it's like now you're starting to see. I mean, there was like now we play the let's see how many. For some strange reason, how many black Dragon Ball Z cosplayers are we going to find this year?
Oh my gosh. There's always two or three. There's always two or three.
For whatever reason, it's like DBZ struck an extra strong chord with black people. They're to the point where there have been articles about it.
Yeah.
Piccolo's the father.
So I don't. This is not a bad thing. Because, honestly, some of the best Dragon Ball cosplayers we've seen have been.
Oh my god, man!
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, wait. There's this Goku. Whew. If I weren't dating. I love my boyfriend very much.
That's fine. If he's anything like Goku, he wouldn't realize what was happening anyway.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize I was staring until he stared back, and I was like, sorry.
But that's one of the things that like I'm actually really really pleased by how the fact that because I know that I have other black friends who have said that being a nerd in black spaces was
terrible.
It was pain.
It's painful because when I was younger and I was into like Sailor Moon, Thundercats, everything that came on Toonami, it was looked at as not being black.
Yeah.
Like if you were articulate, if you enunciated your words, if you were even moderately intelligent, if you picked up a book that wasn't something written by Zane, you
get a little close to home to that one.
Oh my god! You were considered pretend white, or not black enough.
Oreo.
So
you're an Oreo,
or an Oreo, and it was painful, especially because one of the things you want to do is everybody wants to be accepted, and it sucks to its core when, even with all the knowledge that I know of African American culture, even with all the knowledge that my family has forced down my throat, I was not black enough because I liked Sailor Moon.
Because that one time that you mentioned it forever colored their views of you.
Well, the other thing about it is that it's perceived as, and I can only guesstimate as to the thoughts behind it, but the idea of embracing any other culture is considered is disrespecting your own culture.
It's considered being a traitor.
It's a traitor to your own. And the weird thing about it is that
this is specifically something that except maybe maybe Asians. But I'd have to talk to them to find out. I don't know for sure.
There's a little thing going on with the Hispanics too.
Yeah, Hispanics.
But it's like this is something especially white people have absolutely no basis of comparison for understanding at all.
Nope.
Like, you might be a social pariah for being a nerd, but you are still seen as white and accepted on that level.
And having, the things having a value. The thing is that some of the various and sundry people of varying colors that I've had as friends have said that it's hard enough to find, it's bad when your own race turns on you.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of still a second-class citizen in the geek spaces, which is why I'm so happy that it's starting to multicultural.
It's
the multicultural aspect
it's becoming more accepted in other cultures.
Right.
Like before, it used to be anime is only a Asian thing, and comic books was strictly a white thing. But now everybody is becoming more inclusive, and they're like, "This is actually kind of cool. I can get into this. Yay!" And it's.
Have you ever wondered why is it now? How come it couldn't have been when I was younger? No one would see me as this weird kid who's reading manga.
The internet.
By himself.
The internet.
Yeah. Oh,
The internet.
We're not specifically the internet, so to speak. Not that the internet did anything magical. The internet allowed for a much quicker globalizing culture.
Right.
We haven't gotten there yet. But because knowledge and communication can pass so freely,
you can find your
and
tribe.
so quickly, it's not even about finding your tribe. It's that more and more people are thinking of a larger and larger size tribe mentality. So, because of how easy it is for you to connect with somebody over here and over here and over here, you are less closing yourself into just in your immediate area. Mm-hmm. So it is globalizing us as a culture steadily. It was always happening, but when the internet hit and exploded in the 90s and early 2000s into the force that it is now, instead of just the kind of novelty or luxury that it was when it first reached the commercial market, has excelled that even faster. Just like industrialization did with the extra travel, just like ships did with the trade. This is another, we hit this thing and all of a sudden everything can travel so much farther, so much easier, that even people resisting it, we're globalizing more and more and more, very gradually, but it's happening quick enough that within the course of my lifetime, everything has completely changed. From when I was a kid, the expectations about what you could get out of school, what you could do after school, what you would do for jobs, was different from when I was in grade school, high school, early college, and after college. It has never been the same for me. I was there for that entire tumultuous period, and only now to be able to get a city job.
Yeah.
That pays enough. And
that's the
it's unfortunate,
reality.
but it's like, it's the reality, it's the way things are, and the people that have the most trouble are people who cannot accept that change and move with it.
Mm.
But Geek has also reached the mainstream thanks to things like Lord of the Rings movies. You know, it has become
Marvel MCU,
right? And being able to be made easier is that basically it's like, you like somebody more and easier the more you're exposed to them.
Mm-hmm.
So the general public has been exposed more and more and more and more to this, so it's becoming normalized to them. It's no longer this weird thing that the greasy kids in the corner deal with. It's something that they can look at and know what it is. So that makes overall Geek easy to accept into the mainstream, even though people will still complain about that and the normies or what have you, but I tease and call them muggles, but usually the ones I like are the ones that's like, they, like, having muggles come up to a convention and genuinely be like, what is this? With this kind of,
oh my goodness,
this confused wonder at this thing they're not sure of.
Oh, we get tourists all the time.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. There was one Wizard World. I was working in Chicago, and this Polish couple comes in dressed to the nines, completely and totally posh. You can tell they were out of their element. And thank you, Google Translate. We were able to explain to them what was going on, and they ended up buying a ticket to the convention, and they enjoyed it. It wasn't something that they just
But because
they have to be there.
Even the person doesn't realize it, they are exposed to what they're going to find at a convention just by looking around the mall, seeing people around them in TV, what have you. So even if it's passive and they're unaware of it, it's not become this weird, strange, unknown thing anymore. It's just kind of a novelty now. So it's easier for them to accept it because it's not so foreign. And the internet sped that process up immensely. So that's why.
Okay.
That's why you had to suffer as a child.
Because you didn't have the internet.
Yeah, like right now, find me one person that doesn't know Batman.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
But
or Goku.
Or
Right.
Goku.
But every generation that comes after us, if this trend continues, is going to suffer less and less and less. And unfortunately,
You're welcome.
It moves faster for popular culture than it does race relations, which is stupid and sad, but that's also far more ingrained than pop culture.
It didn't, like, when it comes to race relations, people seem to think that it happened so much longer or so much farther back than it actually did. I mean, it's only been...
Well, no, it's like, it's not been that long, but...
It's still been less than a century.
Yeah, but it's still several generations ago. So yes, the bad things that we learn about and people actually dare talk about, the actual slave trade and all that kind of stuff, happened generations ago, where there is very likely not anybody left alive from that time period. That's when it started, that's not when it stopped. The problem is people don't see yes, this was bad. This was a bad thing.
Yeah, people forget that like
it was not
I'm just a little too old.
After
I'm
the
just
Civil
a little
War,
too young to remember Jim Crow.
Right. After the Civil War ended and the slaves were freed, that was not the end of it.
It's not.
That wasn't the happy period. Actually, that was the beginning of the that
Right.
Because they were like,
Wait.
they just let them go. They didn't say, hey, you could do this, 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 and this. They just said...
There you go.
Okay,
You're
now
on your
you're,
own.
now you're jobless and
That's like- it's like-
whatever you want.
It's not like the Animal Kingdom where you have an innate sensibility and you know exactly what you need to do to survive. These are people that have been beaten down to the point where they have become dependent. It's
Right.
and then you just say, oh, by the way, we're no longer in this, relationship where you need to, goodbye.
Goodbye. Yeah.
And on the other side
Well,
is you have all these people who were, taught, not actively taught, but just taught that this is the way it is. That is the problem with when you have, we can make a joke about racist old grandpa, but even if it's just aha grandpa, you still had a certain amount of that carryover from generation and generation. And so it ceases to, it's not, the unintentional and the unknowing racism is almost worse, not because the person is being worse, but because they're not doing it intentionally necessarily, and they don't even realize it. And there's no good way to explain that to a person unless they realize it themselves and then do something about it. And facing a truth like that
ain't easy.
Because it can be smiling, nice, it's gonna be all right. Get punched with a fist pack right in the gut. It's like
Brass knuckles.
right there.
But,
digging him in. Not even trying to be evil. It's like, it's okay, but this is what it is. This is what it is. This is what it feels like. You have to be able to drag yourself through that, even when you are
oh my goodness.
good person. Like, you can
not,
be a good person. That's still not hard.
Let's not forget the other thing about there's one of the other things that, like, from my end of it, like the Hispanic side of it, is that I know that this applies to people, to the various and sundry variations, people of color, is then you get the religious aspect of it. That, yours are devil worship stuff, and the weird shit that I've heard. I mean, again, one of my friends actually moved out of his house because his geekdom was causing problems with his Baptist family. So it's like,
we have less of that now, but in the 80s and the 70s, like, I'm almost glad I didn't as openly latch on knowingly to the geek stuff until I was older. Because my parents fell into that trap with a lot of things.
That was
if you had played D&D during when you were...
Well, my brother Aaron played D&D. My brother Damien, they also played Magic, but it wasn't at the house.
Right.
That was
That's
also
just
we had,
So it's like, and you gotta say, it's like, I mirror my brother so much that, the only major difference is our age gap. I haven't gotten a motorcycle and crashed on it, and I haven't gotten tattoos.
Yet.
I want tattoos.
Yes.
No, one time I visited my mom. She goes, well, you don't have any tattoos like brothers. Like, it's only because I don't have the money for them. Well, maybe that's for the best. It's like, thanks, Mom. So, but it's like, and I can't hold it against my parents because I can see I know their history of how they grew up, how they were raised, the area they were raised in. They are 2 generations away from me. They are both in their 70s. That is not common for somebody in their 30s to have parents in their 70s. Like,
having parents 40 years older than you is like...
Yeah. Like, my eldest brother is old enough to be my father if he had me in, like, his 20s.
Yeah.
So, there's a generational gap up there that I am very aware of. So it's like I can't hold the same things against them because they, as individuals, they don't just stay in that stale area. They grow as much as they're going to, but it's like there are still going to be some things that are so ingrained in them just because of the culture that they grew up in that it's impossible. You can't hold that against a person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can bring it to them, try and convince them of it, and get them to change. But if they don't want to change,
you can't
change them. Now, if they don't turn against you and start going and whatever, and they just continue the way they are, it's like I can sort of forgive that even though I don't agree with it. But to know you need to change and actively fight the change is not a good thing.
But yeah, I'm sure that you get some sort of, you've seen the pressure that some people get for that blasphemous anti-God stuff that in geekdom.
Yeah, about that. I have family members who are very heavy Bible thumpers.
Born agains or Baptist?
Baptist.
Okay.
And I remember
Trust me, there's a difference.
Growing up, at the time of the release of Yu-Gi-Oh! And Card Captors being mainstream, you're getting this stuff, and it's like, what are these creatures? Oh, Card Captors. Are these tarot cards? It's the whole thing is you're bringing the devil. Bring the devil in the house. Oh, I can.
I scared my dad to death. I don't know if you remember the Jackie Chan Adventures.
Oh yeah,
the Talisman.
The Talisman. I was a little kid, mind you. I'm like, what? Preteenish. I'm preteenish, not knowing any better, so I'm looking for the little talismans and everything. And my dad is getting worried because he's like, "What is this?"
Oh my god.
And I'm like, well, according to the Jackie Chan Adventures, this talisman will give you, like the rabbit talisman will give you speed, and the snake talisman will help you blend in, and all that stuff. And he's like, he tells me this story about this woman who's practicing witchcraft.
Oh my god.
And I'm like, don't get me wrong. I did dabble and like research it in my youth because I was a Charmed fan. What can I say?
Yeah.
But I was like, Dad, it's just a cartoon. Okay.
So did it get worse with the Oni mask?
Oh god.
That's what I mean.
Wait a minute.
Like,
we were brought up Buddhist.
Oh wow.
So we were.
You skipped over a lot of the
Yeah. Oh my gosh, no, my godbrother.
A lot of the baggage. That's very good.
My godbrother, heavy into anime. He actually introduced me to anime along with my brother, who was actually at the time an animator. So that's how I got into it. But yeah, the mask didn't scare him so much because we have Japanese friends, or my parents have Japanese friends, and they were able to kind of like say, okay, it's okay.
Right.
You got the Chinese aspect of it over here, and then you got the Japanese aspect over here, and this is what's going on. It's not witchcraft. It's nothing like that. It's okay. She's not going to become possessed and start floating around the room.
Right. So it's like he was able to obtain context from appropriate cultural source from that.
Sorry.
You can. It wasn't some white dude saying this. It was someone's like, okay, this is your culture, and you're explaining it to me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They don't have that for our TV shows.
Mm-mm.
You gotta remember, back when novels were new, you could be institutionalized for reading too much.
Oh man.
A woman
Lock
reading
me up.
novels?
How
she
dare you?
must be crazy. You would be you could literally be, one of the symptoms for being insane was read novels.
Ah.
I am not
It was,
exaggerating.
female hysteria.
No, that was not getting off enough.
Well, that's manipulation of the.
There was.
But so it's like that's what I mean. It's like you have that's extreme because that was far back. But it's like think about the time period when your dad was a kid. What pop culture did he have? Whether or not he was part of whatever.
Motown.
It's like what was there? Were there fantasy stories, either in books or TV or comics. You know, there was no tall tales. He has no context for this thing. He has no sense of where it came from. It's completely foreign.
Which kind of begs the question how he ended up... No, I know how he ended up with my mom. But my mom, she is a Trekkie.
Oh.
She's a hardcore Trekkie. She has a costume and everything. I met Sir Patrick Stewart in Chicago, and I got an autograph for her, and she nearly crashed the car. Like, she loves Star Trek. I was like, oh, anytime I've worked Connecticut, I was put with someone from Star Trek. Like, I worked with Nichelle Nichols, and my mom freaked out.
Oh, I'm sure.
But ultimately, science fiction is safer than fantasy and magic.
Mm-hmm.
Because you do have a cultural history of voodoo, witchcraft, and all this kind of stuff. And so when you see these fantasy creatures or these magic symbols out of the context that they were created for, the only thing you have in your zeitgeist to attach to that is the voodoo, the witchcraft, the black magic, the evil.
Right.
It's you know, not right. But it's like there's nothing else for them. So unless you can actually steer them, like, no, this is what it is, and they can allow themselves to look at it objectively, which is hard because this goes back to the religious aspect of it. A lot of that is deeply tied into people's core as a very strong part of their being, and you are asking them to contradict themselves and reassess themselves and consider themselves might be wrong in some small way. No matter how small, that's an extremely difficult thing for an individual to do.
Right.
Oh my goodness, that goes back to high
This is
school.
one of the reasons why I think I'm so weird.
I'm actually thankful for my dad. Like, I get everything nerdy from tokusatsu and anime and stuff from my dad. My dad is...
Was your dad like an Ultraman fan?
My dad loves Ultraman.
Yeah,
it's everything.
It would be his
that's
age.
how
He's
I
exactly
got.
right
That's
age
how
to
I
work.
got into Power Rangers because of my dad and anime, everything. Even though my dad watches terrible anime, everything that's commercialized.
You may not get taste. I mean, taste is not taste.
he likes
Taste is
Metabots.
generations.
He had very...
He watched like what?
My dad watches
okay.
Beyblade.
Oh my god! Yeah,
The stuff that
taste
he
is
cut
getting a
his
generation
teeth
apparently,
on
but-
I
is
like
just
Shaman
as
Kings.
good as
I
Metabots.
did.
No, but that's the thing.
Which is my point. Is his concept of what good and bad is skewed based on what he ended up with.
True. Yes.
And again, taste is horribly subjective. I mean,
He was kind of
Hey.
doomed from the start.
But he's the reason. I've seen, what is it? Centurions, He-Man, this bunch of like Hanna-Barbera cartoons and like surprisingly anime that hasn't even like made it to the States or anything.
Oh yeah.
Get some
This was the
yeah.
you buying stuff off the back of a shady
God.
van in the parking lot. That's the era your dad was from.
Yeah.
Awesome story.
Real awesome story.
But yeah, it's like I don't even know why I went to Geek because while my brothers are, the one that I take off the most was already moved out of the house by the time I was growing up. He was not around to influence me, and we have practically all the same interests. It's bizarre. It really is.
It's kind of like...
Also, shave my facial hair and cut my... Shave this, cut this, and I will just look like a younger version of him.
Wow.
Mm.
Aw.
I can show you pictures. It's weird.
It's uncanny.
We have the same laugh, which is weird when I hear his laugh when I'm laughing, and
So are
he's
you guys
not here.
clones?
I don't know, honestly, because we're 18 years apart.
There you
Oh,
go.
that means absolutely nothing.
It's just like,
But yeah, it's like my parents aren't geeks by any stretch. Their circle of friends aren't geeks by any stretch. But they are weird. They are not your average. Thankfully, thank the stars. They are not your average people from that time period. You know, my mom's been theater, clowning. You know,
I still think
dad.
that's awesome.
My dad is basically an electronics nerd. So is his brother. I mean, my dad is in the Navy in the radio room. My uncle is in the Army as an electrical engineer. So yeah, they I guess in some sense they had geeky type personalities, but they were not otaku of this kind of stuff. So I suppose I had some of that there, but it's like I was just the stuff I was drawn to naturally. I don't know why. And I think for whatever reason it's easier for me to readjust to the way I see myself and what I do and what I change because my parents are clowns. And you just think about this for a second. The funny part about being clowns. in the back. And being in theater with costume changes, you can have more reference for this. It was normal for me, for my parents to change their appearance and their persona on a regular basis. And it was always normal. It was not hidden from me. They didn't hide. They didn't try. It was like I could be there when they're putting their makeup on or off. I would see them when they're in personality of their clown. I see them when they're out personality of the clown. But they are always the same person.
Mm-hmm.
So my way of looking at people and things is extremely fluid because of that. That's my theory anyway.
No, that's actually a really good theory because it's the same way. It's... Okay, coming from a theater background, you know that the people on stage are not the people off stage. Right. So it does create this ease of accepting people in all forms of whichever way they feel like being.
Mm-hmm.
And that also translates to being able to accept other cultures, being able to accept people who have different interests outside of you because you know that people are multifaceted. That's something that a lot of people don't necessarily get. It's becoming more and more, what's the word I'm looking for? Not accepted, but it's becoming more and more of a thing mentally today because people are realizing that there's more than just this static one type personality. And
as they're being exposed to more and more on a regular basis, it's becoming more and more normal for them to be exposed to so many different things.
Exactly.
So it's less of it's easier for a younger person in this day and age to reassess themselves and change and accept different people because they have not spent the amount of time that the older generation has in one mindset.
Mm-hmm.
When the older generations changed, there was slow and gradual changes by comparison. They still could have been fast by comparison to the ones before them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like someone who's in their 60s is faced with something that changes the way they see themselves. They have to face at least 30 to 40 years of how they live their life and some part of that being wrong to change and
that's
grow.
where things like toxic masculinity comes in.
Yeah.
Because you have these people that are so transfixed on the idea of what this person should be that it doesn't give them room to grow. Right. You put them in a box and that box gets cramped the bigger you are.
You have to stare at the void and let it stare back to make any kind of growth. And the more static your being has been, the most time you've been static, the harder that is to
Which is
do.
one of the problems that I've always had with the appearance and concept of cultural appropriation is the cultures are not static at all. Right. Period.
And when I grew up, when I was growing up in grade school, they were preaching, that's probably the right word for it, the America as melting pot idea, which probably stopped being in the curriculum like high school. Mm-hmm. I can remember from grade school, but I can't remember when it was there. So I grew up with the idea that America is supposed to be this country where all these disparate cultures come into this giant pot and just kind of mix together into something else. Mm-hmm. So, we're completely, we still have plenty of hatred and things, the Irish, the Italians, you name it. Everyone who came over on the boats was hated for a certain amount of time before they came in for different reasons and different lengths.
I actually never understood that because I've seen more Irish-Italian couples than anything else.
It's probably the backlash from all of the 50s.
Remember,
so it's more
force a child to go this way, and they will do everything in their power to go this way.
The other thing is the weird thing about the alternate Catholics, and then there was the whole Catholic Protestant thing. So
there's the Catholics and Protestants, there's the Roman Catholics and the Greek Orthodox Catholics, which are also not the same thing. Then you got the Russian Catholics, not the same thing. It's a mess.
Yeah.
But
the thing... But the thing about it,
not all the conflict was over race. A lot of it with the white people was over religion. Anglican exists so that the king could divorce his wife and marry the next hotness. That's the only reason that church exists.
Yep.
Literally the only reason the Anglican Church exists.
The reason why I bring that up is because one of the things that I find funny is that now we're seeing this weird sort of everyone wanting to wall off their culture and say this is you have to pass the litmus test of being X amount of which is the problem is that
actually I wouldn't even say the annoying part, they're not walling themselves off.
No. It's other people saying that this belongs with this and you shouldn't be doing that and you're not a part of that culture.
Yeah, it's just kind of weird. I
see the problem is I've never understood the concept of now. Admittedly,
It's the being offended for you syndrome.
I do find it. I personally understand when someone says when white chick, famous chick du jour wears box braids and they're like, look at this new style, and I'm like, the fuck?
No,
really?
And that's the thing. No, that's the thing. People don't understand the difference between appropriation and appreciation.
Right.
For instance, if I wear a kimono, I'm going to want to wear it culturally correct. I know not to do, what was it, right over left, because that's strictly for funerals. Mm-hmm. Even if it is really hard for me because I'm so used to it's appreciation when you want to do it true to that culture and you want to show that culture in its best light. It's appropriation when you're trying to call it something new in order to make it more acceptable for people in your...
claim it as your own.
Right.
Yeah. That's appropriation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's it called? I forget which fashion designer, and this is sad because I actually went to fashion school, but one fashion designer decided to do something called mini buns. And black people are looking at it like Bantu knots.
Like, hello, hi.
Like, they're like, oh, look at these new innovative mini buns. I'm
my God.
Are you serious? Scary Spice has been doing this since the It's not new. It is not new.
Look at my man bun. No, that's a failed top knot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Like,
I'm sorry.
what's it called?
I will wear a rat tail before I wear a man bun. Because
There are some guys that look
you can say rat tail's a bad look.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it might be for some people on video. But you know what it is? It's an honest look.
Rat tails are not pretending to be anything.
Rat tails do not pretend to be anything but rat tails. Man buns are trying to be something else. I don't know what they're trying to be, but it's something else.
Convenient handle.
No, see, that's not a convenient handle. That's the handle that when you grab it, the bolts come out and your hand flies off. It's not even effective. Like,
kidding.
if you have to grip it,
We're killing
If you have
buddies.
to keep, reasserting your grip on this bun, it's not convenient. That's just getting in the way of the action.
Oh my
Pull
God.
that shit out and just grab it with handlebars.
Oh,
Talking Hat is the name of our guest with mirth.
I can't breathe. Wait a minute. I'm good.
This is why I said don't worry about the subject matter. If there's a hot button to push, we will be ramming that.
No, I wasn't prepared. I didn't wear waterproof mascara. but yeah, like Coldplay did Him for the Weekend, and I thought it was beautiful. I loved it, especially because there's a prominent Bollywood actress featured in it. But everyone was crying, "Oh, it's appropriation! It's appropriation!" I'm like, no. Iggy Azalea's Bounce, that's appropriation. No. Hear me out.
Oh, God.
It's American made. The director is American. The costumes were taken out of a warehouse in Los Angeles, American. And it was a stereotypical, Bollywood type thing.
It was, we're going to do a Bollywood number because
Yeah.
it's in or something.
Where Him for the Weekend, Coldplay went to India. They showed Indian citizens. They used an Indian fashion designer, which I now follow. He's amazing. They used an Indian director. They made sure that everything was, okay, they could film there. And everything was India. Everybody from India was like, thank you. I love this. You are showing the best of our culture. Mm-hmm. This is great. Becky.
I know what you're about to say.
God.
I don't know if she'll get to it.
Oh my God.
Insert Becky. This is cultural appropriation. Mind you, she is not Indian. No. I have no idea if she has any Indian friends. She looks she doesn't I'm like,
what was she
do you even doing? She was saying, how dare you and Beyonce use cultural appropriation in your video. I'm like,
what?
Honest to goodness, every Indian post, everyone from India that has seen this is like, I love this. Mm-hmm. This is nice. Like, you're using people that we know of from our culture. You are using a Bollywood actress that I am personally a fan of. And You're not doing something so stereotypical.
It's like
that is
you
ridiculous.
are expressing
You're
your joy and like of this culture by
including us,
including it and embracing it in the proper way.
Whereas
you are not taking the culture,
saying, "Oh, look at me,"
putting it on as a mantle of a costume, and doing a monkey show.
Yeah.
Well, so one of the things though is that was really funny is I've always the thing of this is it's my culture. It's not a costume. It's my culture. Is kind of funny to me only because all cultures are by definition costumes. Because remember, you don't have. I mean, you're not again. If you are Indian, but you're not born in India, it doesn't matter how much culture comes with it. It's you can be completely devoid of that culture when you grow up. I mean, like because I'm the most Hispanic thing about me, besides the fact that I do speak Spanish, is the fact that I like Spanish food, and everything else about Spanish culture I'm kind of iffy
and
about.
that's not a strong Spanish thing, because who else loves Spanish food?
Exactly.
Yeah, I also grew up next to Mexico.
So yeah, he likes Mexican food. I have
I'm just saying, I will eat the crap out of some bacalaitos.
Yes, bacalaitos. Yes.
I want a sink that pours churros.
Yeah, that would be him.
I want that too.
But,
see, that's the funny thing. It's like
no,
I'm as white as you get, but because I grew up in San Diego, which you cannot get away from Mexican culture to save your life. It's impossible. Mexican culture is part of San Diegan history and San Diegan culture. It just is. I grew up around it. I was exposed to it. I'm not Mexican. I can't claim anything like that. I don't have the same meaning behind Dia de los Muertos that an actual Mexican would do, but I still respect that, and I do. I wouldn't necessarily celebrate it as a thing because it's not my culture. I don't have those beliefs. My afterlife beliefs are different. But I still really appreciate it. I love the aesthetic of it. Every time I see a movie do it right, it makes me happy. But I completely lost where I was going with that.
Respecting their culture.
But no, you respect the culture. You can appreciate that. Cultural appreciation. Anyone who's even
it's like I don't just appreciate it. I respect it for what it is.
What I find is that even racist people in like New York and like DC and places like that I've met, even the racist people in those places, the more multicultural, more multinational your area is, their racism is so mild compared to
someone in the deep south,
where it's like it's just white as far as the eye can see, or it's black as far as the eye can see, because but it's the problem is the more insular your community is, the more the racism can get completely out of hand.
Right.
I mean, there's the cute. I mean, my favorite weird racist moment for me is hearing my mother's friend, who we used to call Aunt Peggy, describing talking about what her mother believed that Puerto Ricans could jump up to a second-story window from a standing position. Oh my god! Truly and honestly believe that this was something Puerto Ricans were just apparently Spider-Man.
Knowing about him as a child, he would have tried to do it.
That was he would
have failed spectacularly and injured himself, but he'd still try.
My whole thing is that I'm thinking. I remember thinking. I'm going like how the hell would you? Can you like scrabble up the wall or something?
I'm like, is this a superpower I didn't know I had?
But the thing is that like that's the kind of racism, the kind of casual racism that you, and it's the kind of what I refer to as eye rolling racism, where you're like, really? Okay, whatever. I'm not even going to. That's the
you can forgive and forget it so easily just because of how ridiculous it is.
Yeah, dumb racism.
Here we go. So my mom, she grew up in Newark, New Jersey, and she went to arts high school, and at the time it was the 60s. Hey, so she goes over to her friend's house. Her friend is white, and the mother loves my mom, and she's like. She just says, "Oh, I love you so much. I just want to dip you in bleach and, call you my own." And she didn't mean anything.
Oh my god!
Did you realize what she said afterwards?
I don't know. All I remember is my mom cracking up.
The genuineness behind that horribly racist comment was just too naive and innocent to be seen as anything other than.
I think that was pretty much it, because
but
it's like
you're so cute. I want to dip you in bleach
and call you my own. I'm like, on the one hand, I'm like,
that is horribly offensive.
it's what we call a backhanded compliment.
That backhanded doesn't even start to begin. Oh my god! Wow!
I was like, it's almost as bad as people going, "Oh, you're pretty for a black girl."
Yeah.
I would say that's definitely worse because they know what they're saying. This woman didn't sound like she knew what she was saying, at the very least in the moment.
Yeah.
She may have realized later and been like, "Oh my god, I can't believe she did
maybe
that."
later she might have gone, maybe I shouldn't have said that. her heart was in the right place.
She's like, should I be glad I didn't get murdered in my sleep for that?
Does she let your mom know if it's like haunting her to this day?
No, she doesn't. She doesn't. I'm not even sure if she still talks to the girl that she went to high school with, but
Which happens all the time. But still, that's wow.
yeah. No, these are like some of the.
See, that
It's
kind
not
of
as
comment
blatant.
and delivery, it's impossible for that kind of level of thing to be birthed out of cruelty and intent.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas,
Not that it's good. Like, it still needs to not happen, but that's just wow.
That's
Wow.
That's cringe racism.
Wow.
Oh no, cringe racism would be my ex-boyfriend. It was the first time he was dating a black girl, and his family had never seen me before. They've never seen a picture of me before. So
Guess who's coming to dinner?
So
Oh, no.
From
So-
Canadian to black. No wonder they're confused.
Oh, wait, okay, so in order to kind of trick his younger brother into showing a picture of me, they spread the rumor that I was super dark, that my hair was, nappy, and I had a wide nose, and basically I was the stereotypical mammy black girl. And when they finally do
they
see...
not realize
real.
that those
That's
don't
real.
really exist anymore?
They don't,
If they ever
but-
did?
I was devastated when his little brother told me that this was going on, and he showed them a picture of me, and they went, "Oh, she's really pretty," and I was like,
What the? Oh. Ooh.
So you hopped the nope train to fuck this film?
"Actually, no, we lasted for 3 years."
Well, hey, you're a stronger woman than I.
But ironically, these
Well,
are the
it's not-
kind of
it's not
things
his
that
fault.
it's not his fault.
But
It's
still,
not his fault, and I was
being
like,
in a relationship with someone is still, to a certain degree, being in a relationship with their family. So
And
there's
I
still a
understood
level of
that.
strength that's needed there for you.
which is why I'm like, if I were to date, I'm currently dating outside of my race, and one
Is
of
he
the
not a
things.
human?
I see what you did there.
That's always been my thing. Like,
I'm currently dating outside of my ethnicity.
yeah, I know what you meant. Don't worry.
And one of the things that I constantly worry about is how I will be accepted by his friends and family. And he's like, thankfully my current boyfriend has dated outside of his ethnicity before. Like, it's no big deal for him. It's no big deal for his family. They've all been very lovely. But that particular incident is still something that I worry about.
It's always because of the severity of it. It's
Yeah,
always,
like,
even if
wow.
even if you can consciously go, I know this isn't something that's going to happen all the time, and I don't need to worry about it.
I still
It's
worry.
still going to have its claws in you, even when you know that just go away.
Because it was like the second that I was like, okay, it's not gonna happen. It's okay. It happened, and there's no warning for that. There's
There
no
really
way to.
There's no way to brace for it.
Yeah.
That's like,
Because you want to believe the best in people. You want to think it's not something as shallow and something that you can't change, such as your skin color. But sometimes it is, and it sucks.
You're hoping people
Like there's
will
even
progress.
there's even that in African American culture. Like there was something called the brown paper bag test, where you were able to pass as white if you were lighter than a brown paper bag.
So essentially, you could pass for tan instead of black.
Yeah, basically.
If the
ain't that terrific? huh?
I would say
Yeah.
if the white people were blind and stupid, but they probably are.
Oh no, what's it called? Apparently Lena Horne shocked a bunch of people. I was like, wait, you didn't know? Okay.
Really? Really?
I got news for you. We are genetically different enough that it's not just skin color. If you know
Yeah.
what you're looking at, you should not be surprised.
Yeah.
But unless this is a child of a mixed marriage, you should not be surprised.
But it even goes into like, okay, that's colorism, by the way. That's just a whole little sub
Well, that's
thing
like,
that we have
I
to
mean,
deal with.
that's a level of racism where that they're not, like, a white person is not seeing you as yourself as a black person because in their eyes you are too white.
Yeah.
Which is almost worse.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I'm not getting hatred from you, but you're also completely rejecting who I am without knowing it.
Exactly.
It's
Like,
race erasure.
Yeah, that's definitely a whole different level of...
Like, I have one friend that's half and half, and she is gorgeous. Oh my god! But everybody, you either get, are you white or are you Hispanic? It's,
Oh yeah.
you get that, like, even
The joy of being mixed race, where you're like,
Yeah.
where people will. I got constantly accused of being Italian or of all things Middle Eastern,
Please, people have thought we're brothers.
which is always
I can kind of
that's the facial hair. With the facial hair, it's not entirely unreasonable.
Without the facial hair, you two look like two completely different people. But
Yeah, but it's like the hats, the things. They're like, are you brothers? And
I
like,
mean, it's probably
and-
more our mannerisms and whatnot, but still. I can understand people thinking Tony and I are related because he's Italian-Irish and I have Italian and Irish. Bunch of other things.
Well, Tony and I are constantly accused of being. Are you two brothers? I'm like, no.
that sucks. Oh, that's terrible.
Oh no! I mean, we used to go out when we go out with Nick and be like, you know,
Oh, your son?
No.
No, well,
That's right.
are you all related? I'm like,
Oh, we have
Sure.
we have to explain polyamory.
yeah, we're all Lannisters,
Uh,
or Targaryens.
oh no, I had to explain to one now ex-boyfriend the difference between polygamy and polyamory.
Yeah,
There are still people who don't know that there is a difference.
There's a difference.
and there's another cultural weirdness that, you know, like, if some cultures are like we're kind of like turn a blind eye. Some cultures just look.
But thank you, Steven Universe.
Yeah, there you go. But the things I'm just looking at, like, fandom is. Sometimes I almost feel like fandom will save us because fandom is different inherently. Like, when you go to Dragon Con, you know what's funny is you see a lot of people like let down those. I mean, there are always going to be people who won't, but you see a lot more. Well, you know, like I'd say about 60,000 of the 80,000 people that show up. Just want to, you know, like, this is the thing.
This is going home.
This is the thing about fandom, is that fandom doesn't care. I don't care what, you know, I don't care what nationality you are. You know, you like these things,
like,
you know.
Ironically, the same feelings that cause people to be gatekeepers are the same feelings that cause people to be more accepting of other people. Because their concern is, we share this thing.
Right.
That's what matters. Race doesn't matter. Sex doesn't matter, usually. It's
hey, you like
we,
what I like.
we have this shared liking. That is our center core. That's where we connect.
You're going
And
to have a
unfortunately-
friendship with 6,000 of your closest friends.
Right, and unfortunately, when that's turned on its head and it's bad, then it's the, you are not worthy of this thing you say we have in common. But that's,
here we go.
every coin turns back and forth for different reasons. So
And and I tell you right now that I have personally witnessed people try to gatekeep in anime spaces, you know, people of color, from, like, you know, like, trying to the same shit that you would say to a girl you didn't think that, you know, she was a big enough fan. You have to be the X amount of fan to pass the bar.
pass the
And I'm like,
Oh, that was
quiz.
the thing with girls, like,
oh yeah, sure.
especially when gaming was strictly a guys thing. But now more and more girls are getting into it, and guys are like testing the girls. Like,
Yeah,
you're not that much of a fan if you never played
these
this.
idiots.
And,
It's always been a girl thing too. They've just been too stupid to realize it.
yeah.
Oh my God.
And there was actually a friend of mine made an interesting observation. They were like, she was like, I feel like sometimes there are people in these fandoms and they just want that exclusivity and they want to be, you know, kind of the outsider.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. That's
Like-
that's a
We
given,
have had
actually.
friends who have proudly called themselves the lunatic fringe.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
emphasis
why do
on
you
the
want to
lunatic
be?
part.
Why do you want to be the pariah? Why are you proud to be the pariah?
Yeah. It's like the whole.
It's the wanting to be edgy thing. It's like I want. It's even
it's
sort
not
of a
even
bizarre
being
hipster.
It's not even wanting to be edgy. It's wanting.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's wanting to be special. Wanting they need to feel that they are on a pedestal above other people.
What are the cool?
So they need to stand out.
Oh, and let me tell you something. That's like
one of the cool kids by being one of the only cool kids.
Cool. So sometimes it's not even necessarily a case of they have to be cool. They just have to feel that they're somehow above some other people.
Because a lot of the problem is that a lot of these people don't feel special or unique or have any control over people around them in their lives. Mm-hmm. This is, I could literally, especially from my dealings with Lunarians and Lunicon, all that shit, I could have this laundry list of exactly what is wrong with these people because I was stuck with the problems you get to experience their lives by other people telling you all the shit that's going on, like the swirling cesspool.
Oh, just wait until he gets to the Lunicon sagas and starts recording those.
Because I'm going to start.
Yeah, you'll want to watch those.
Yeah.
You're everything.
No, but the thing is that I've seen it. It's not just. It wasn't just Lunarians. It's just that I learned how to recognize it.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's where that was the school you went to.
Yeah, that was the school I learned to. Is that you start seeing people who need to feel like they have some semblance of superiority because they have nothing else that they feel
they have nothing else they can latch on to give themselves worth.
It's why there are certain people who go to, like work in other conventions where they're so into their job because this is where they feel special and this is gives them the warm fuzzies that make them feel like they're important.
It gives them the sense of purpose and value is this convention. So they need to be important at this convention. And seeing that way to be the people that can mention,
God forbid there's any semblance of you. God forbid anyone tries to. It's like this food aggression, man. You go anywhere near the bowl, and they're like, and it's something that I have noticed that every gatekeeper does too. Is because they feel like they're special because they know all of this trivia and they have accumulated all of this, and they don't want you diluting their specialness.
Right. And the thing is, I'm not sure where that line is. Because while I don't see myself exclusively, I'm a nerd and nothing else, being a geek, being a nerd, is a very large portion of what I see myself as. You take that out, you take out the majority of my personality with it. So much of me is tied to that. But at the same note, I'm not nothing but that. I'm not held captive to it and its whims upon my person. But these people are. And I don't know where that line is, how you cross that line, what causes it, how do you reach it. It's like, how do you go from, maybe people think I care about this too much, but no, I could be without this, or, if I end up not being able to go to conventions or stuff for a while, I would not shrivel up and die and lose all force of meeting. I have other interests, I have other passions. This is my main one. This is the one that is the expression of who I am. But it's not my sole end for being. Where does that happen that it becomes that way, though?
Because the strangest thing is that one of the funny things, especially when dealing with race issues, was that when I used to go to Lunicon, and I've said this before, I think in one of the other videos, was that I never. All the divides that I saw.
We really should have brought water in here.
What?
We really should have brought some water in here.
Yeah, no. The divides that I saw were not. I didn't see racial divides as in because when people of color or people who weren't white or Jewish would go to SCON in particular, I never saw them as being treated like being excluded because they were or looked down upon because they were a different color.
It's always your fandom.
No, it wasn't even that. Oh, it wasn't even that. It was your wealth. I won't lie.
No. This is
really no. Here we go. Wait a minute.
It wasn't. I mean, the thing is, it was never proper poor shaming, but you could tell the kind of like, "Aw, isn't it cute how you guys? Did you save up all year to come to this con?" It's kind of.
As someone who worked New York Comic Con.
Yeah, you get that. See, it's
not
not my imagination, folks.
Look, they put me with Stan Lee, and then they put me with Mark Hamill. I've seen the worst of it.
Oh my god!
I have seen people who have literally saved up every penny to get the $975 autograph from Mark Hamill to people that don't even bat an eyelash.
Mm-hmm. And then the problem is that and the funny thing is that there was this. I mean, their idea. I didn't see exclusion. What was funny is that I saw the people with money, who would be like, how quaint, the rabble have arrived. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's this weird sort of elitism that we never chafed at it, except for the fact that we're looking at you going like, who the fuck are you? It's like, we really had that as it. I mean, it's because the joy of youth, where you're kind of like, I don't care.
Have you seen Gentleman's Guide to Murder?
Lovely. Did you?
I did the costumes, but I didn't see the play.
Did you know the premise, right?
Yeah.
One of the songs, when the dice quiz is going, I don't understand the poor.
And he's pointing at the.
And he actually, when we went to the show, he actually gestures to the nosebleeds when he says a brilliant piece of acting. Like seriously, he's like, I don't understand the poor.
That's so good. Oh my god.
That honestly made being in the nosebleeds better than not being in the nosebleeds. That's the kind of elitism you're getting. It's like, this is an exaggerated elitism that we save for performance and stage, but you're being that way in real life. I can't take you seriously.
Exactly.
It's kind of like the whole thing between, remember you were talking about the big cons versus the little cons. Mm-hmm. Like the elitism of the ginormous, corporate conventions like Wizard World and Reed Pop and all that jazz. And then you got the little ones like Greater Philadelphia and Monster Mania, where you still get a good selection of like everything you need for a cheaper price. But the elitists are like,
Like I need.
But you have your own little homegrown elitism there too.
Oh yeah,
that's the fun part.
They don't like any of them. Like what's it called? When Walker Stalker first started, the first time I went to Walker Stalker, it was like around the time they were not getting as much traction as they have now. Mm-hmm. But oh my god, they used to rag on Wizard World all day long.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's not necessarily deserved of Wizard World, but that's not why they were doing it.
I was like,
elitism and conventions.
It's a thing.
See, it's really hard for us to remember that geeks are unfortunately people.
Yeah.
And people are terrible.
And and they are. And what's really funny is that, like, on one side, the problem is that
for all your Gandhis, you always have your charlatans.
No, I want to believe that fandom is a force of good for the universe, and it's fandom will save us kind of thing. But I also have lived in fandom. I've been involved in fandom for almost 30 years now, and I also know why it won't be.
Because we know, and
let's
in the expanding universe, Luke was a Jedi, but then he became Sith.
Yeah, it's like, well.
And then he became Jedi, and then I lost track after that.
Wait, Luke wasn't did he become a Sith at some point?
Yeah, he in an expanded universe specifically.
Oh, God.
In the now non-canonical.
No, not canon anymore.
Was it the Legends or Tales? What the hell?
Your opinion does not matter.
No,
it's like fandom can be a force for good. It can be what saves, but there are still black spots in it, just like there is in anything else.
Oh, why it's gotta be black, man?
He went there. It wasn't me.
I right into that. I deserve that. I walked right into that one.
Yes, you do deserve that. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Zing.
But okay, we probably should wrap this up.
We should wrap it up. Yes,
but
we'll definitely have to have you guys back. We won't necessarily wait for February to do another episode.
Yay!
We might have you back before then. We might might also have you back then, but I figured for our first time it was appropriate.
It was nice to have, some add some color to the the crew.
I'm wearing neutrals.
Yes.
Oh, he's talking about your hat.
Yeah, pretty much.
My superpower is to light the way in the middle of day.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm surprised he doesn't burst into flames when the sun comes up.
Because like Thunder calls rain.
Yep. Basically. Although I'm not that bad anymore. I've actually managed to burn enough that I just tan now.
You got a small tan. You're not as...
Trust me, it's on the heels of burning.
Wait, do you also shed, and are you also like some sort of like lizard man?
Right?
That wasn't true.
No, oh my goodness, no. That reminds me, I was like, I told my one ex, put sunscreen on. Oh, don't worry about it. I'll be standing underneath the parasol all day. He was burnt. So, it was the coolest thing ever. It's like when you were a kid and you would put glue on your hands and...
Oh, you must have been running around chasing after him like this.
Funny, I had a 2nd-degree burn all over my arms, shoulder, and back when I was in grade school or early high school. I forget which.
Aloe vera. It works wonders.
trust me.
Don't you remember? Don't you remember when you were working for the muggliest muggles, and you went out?
Well,
and
that wasn't sunburning. That was heat exhaustion.
But no, you were burnt as fuck.
Oh, I was burnt, but I wasn't like it wasn't like
crispy.
I wasn't like crispy burnt. No, I'm okay. Close your ears if you're squeamish. Now, I had, granted, this was my middle school hand, so not quite this big, a little smaller, but I had fist-sized blisters on my shoulders at some point.
My brother had that happen to him once.
Like, everything was just, and it's like, since that burn, I've still burned and shed, not near as much. So I've basically, this isn't a tan, it's more of a searing.
Ladies and gentlemen, the benefits of melanin.
See, that's what racism is. It's actually jealousy. Because on a subconscious level, we know you have all the advantages.
I'm like, I don't recall ever getting sunburned.
Me either.
I'm very happy.
I'm a tad bit lighter.
Yeah.
But
Have you ever burned your hand on like a stove or something?
I'm sorry, no. Okay.
She's probably burned herself on an iron or hot.
And actually, no, because I've pricked my fingers with as many sewing needles. And I've had so many like little sewing accidents that the tips of my fingers are actually numb. I use my fingertips to set the heat of an iron.
Yeah. Okay. That burning sensation you get when you burn yourself like that, imagine that over large portions of your body for days to weeks to months on end, depending on severity.
You poor thing.
Yep, that's...
When I say I'm Whitey McWhiterson, I am not exaggerating.
Oh my
I am surprised I can actually sort of tan these days.
So what SPF, like, sunscreen do you have to
Concrete. I use concrete.
Just, yeah.
I use FPS concrete.
Oh no!
No, and what's really funny is that, like, for as white as I look, I tan. So...
Well, that's because you have that little Spanish blood in you.
The thing is, what's really funny was when I used to this is to show you what kind of family I live with, was when I used to go out, and we used to go to the local pool up in the Bronx when I was growing up, and at one point my grandmother came down to visit, and she's like, who's this Mexican boy that came into this house? Yeah, that's how brown I had become.
No, it's like
Telling my mother,
the darkest I get is Sicilian, because the rest of my Italian is Roman, and Romans are pale. So, yeah, the Sicilian's kind of washed out by the rest of white Europe.
Oh my god.
So, okay, on that note... Oh dear.
We will see you all again. This has been Talking Hats. I'm Monty Squiggles.
I'm Old Man Wolfie.
I'm Billy.
And I'm Bunny.
We'll see you later.
And see ya.